Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of the EMI SIG annual meeting. We are so happy that you're here. My name is Carol Eifert. I'm one of the EMI SIG administrative coordinators, and it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Kip Holdridge. Kip is an emergency management professional from the DOE HQ Consolidated Emergency Operations Center. He's had 15 years of experience with emergency operations centers, communications, disaster response, and community recovery and continuity of operations. Kip will be speaking today on bridging together a steady state, common operational picture for senior leadership, the Consolidated Emergency Operations Center daily operational brief. If you have a question during this session, use the chat tool and I'll relay those questions to Kip at the end of our session. With that, please welcome Kip to our virtual stage. Welcome, Kip.
Welcome everyone to today's session entitled Bridging Together a Steady State Common Operational Picture for Senior Leadership, the CEOC Daily Operational Brief. My name is Kip Holdridge and I'm a Policies and Procedures Analyst in the DOE and NNSA Headquarters Consolidated Emergency Operations Center. I'll be sharing with you the history, evolution, and future of our daily operational brief. This is our agenda for today's session. We will touch on the purpose and format of the daily operational brief before walking through an example. We will finish up by talking about lessons learned, opportunities for sites to contribute information, and considerations for implementing a similar product at your site. The Daily Operational Brief, or DOB, is a summary of operational readiness and event reporting relevant to the DOE and NNSA emergency management mission. It is a point-in-time snapshot for departmental leadership. The information is current as of the publication time, but by its nature, the information contained in the DOB is fluid. For this reason, and due to its format as an emailed document, the DOB is not intended as a real-time representation of operations. We publish the DOB every workday. In the past, we would typically publish the DOB between 9 and 10 a.m. Eastern Time, but due to the ongoing COVID incident, the DOB is published around 11 a.m. Eastern Time in order to include the DOE senior leadership brief for the COVID incident as part of the distribution. In general, the information in the DOB reflects the previous duty day. Notable exceptions are the National Significant Weather, which is for the date of publication, and the site operational status, which we try to make as accurate as possible as of the publication of the document. When the Watch Office distributes the DOB, it goes to over 400 individual recipients. Most of the recipients are program office leadership, including the -1s and -2s of all program elements across both DOE and NNSA. We actually do not have an exact count of recipients, as the DOB is sent to several distribution lists that account for entire offices. We also publish an interagency version of the DOB that goes to the operations centers of about a dozen partner agencies. The interagency version of the DOB is the same as the internal version, except that the senior leadership locator slide has been removed. Finally, the DOB is briefed each day by a watch officer to the NA40 leadership, including Chief Hopkins, prior to distribution. This serves several purposes, including visibility for leadership, briefing practice for watch officers, and a final quality check of the product prior to distribution. The first version of the DOB was created back in June 2015, except back then it was called the Common Operating Picture. The format was a single slide quad chart that included DOE and NNSA current operations, significant weather, DOE EOC current state, and significant events. Over the next few months, the specific content in each quad of the chart evolved, and the format began to incorporate small tables and other graphics. But by April 2016, the document had outgrown the quad chart format. As the amount of content grew, the format changed to briefing slides, starting with 10 standard slides. In July 2017, the document title was changed to Daily Operational Brief to better reflect its content and purpose as a point-in-time product. Minor revisions to content and format continue to today, including the addition of ad hoc slides when necessary for significant events. As an example, there are 2 slides that have been added specific to the current COVID incident. With these changes, the current size of the document has grown to 18 slides. We will now take a brief tour of the current DOB format and content. The opening slide includes the publication date and a security statement regarding further distribution of the document. The next slide is one that gets the most attention, the Senior Leadership Locator. On this slide, we track the location at the city level for the President and 7 DOE and NNSA officials, including S1 through S5. The next 2 slides list the current duty officers across the emergency management enterprise. These include the current day and night watch shifts, the emergency response officer, and several federal team leaders from the Nuclear Emergency Support Team program, program duty officers, and current Headquarters Unified Coordination Structure General Staff Monitoring Team. All this information used to be contained on one slide, but we split it into 2 slides as the number of reported positions increased. Here's another example of information that used to be contained on just one slide. The first slide details the current deployment of Nuclear Emergency Support Team and Emergency Support Function 12 assets. In the current example, there are no assets deployed and a blank map is shown. The second slide was broken out due to the COVID incident and the varying statuses across the complex. Normally, this information is reported by exception, meaning only those sites at other than a normal operating status. These 2 slides have been added specifically for the COVID incident. They include general information on the number of cases across the country, as well as specific information regarding cases at DOE sites. The slides also define pandemic preparedness levels and travel advisories for the reader. Moving on, the next slide lists all open interest reports from the Watch Office, as well as those that were closed since the last DOB, which could be anywhere from the last 24 to 72 hours, depending on the day of the week. The Watch Office also staffs a liaison desk at the Department of Homeland Security National Operations Center, and we include the major issues that the DHS NOC is tracking for the day. The media monitoring slide includes links to articles related to DOE programs or ongoing incidents. In the example here, the articles all relate to DOE programs. Whenever possible, we like to include articles concerning incidents at or near DOE sites, or on issues that may impact emergency management programs. The special events schedule is a list of upcoming events and can include ongoing operations, hurricane season, national special security events, major exercises, or other relevant events that involve deploying field assets or emergency preparedness activities. The National Significant Weather slide includes a weather map and textual summaries of active watches and warnings, large fires, geophysical events, and space weather. The National Electricity Picture is a snapshot of power outages from the Eagle Eye system. The Office of Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response maintains the Energy Infrastructure Update. On a daily basis, a member of their staff provides additional analysis and reporting on energy infrastructure issues. When necessary, this slide can split into multiple slides to accommodate all of the activity across the country. The final slide includes the contact information for the Watch Office and repeats the security disclaimer. Finally, the last 2 slides include definitions of common activation levels and severity scales referenced in the document. These definitions are hyperlinked so that the user can click on the given topic within the DOB and be brought to these definitions. Links in the lower right corner then take the reader back to the slide from which they started. Looking to the future, the next major revision to the DOB will leverage WebEOC for production of the document. The majority of information currently contained in the DOB is already tracked and available in our WebEOC system. On the screen, you can see a few examples of information from the DOB that we also track in WebEOC. Working clockwise from the top, the Site Operational Status Board mirrors the Site Operational Status slide. The Emergency Management Enterprise Duty Officers Board reports the same information as the Duty Officers slide. And we can generate the same National Significant Weather map within WebEOC as well. To reduce the need to enter the same information in multiple places, we are looking to leverage WebEOC for producing the DOB by formatting display views of each pertinent board so that they look like the current DOB. This will then allow us to generate the point-in-time DOB from the live WebEOC data just by pushing a Publish button. We hope to make this transition in FY21. The DOB consolidates a large amount of information into one document, and much of that information comes from partners. Within the CEOC, the Watch Office maintains the DOB, but it includes information provided by the NA44 Current Operations Team and the NA42 Exercises Team. The Senior Leadership Locator information comes from each principal scheduler. Most of the schedulers provide the locator information 1 week at a time, with updates as necessary for last-minute travel. The DOB tracks the daily locations of the President and 7 DOE and NNSA officials, and collecting and verifying this information is one of the most time-consuming aspects of producing the DOB. Crisis action teams also contribute information on their current operations and deployments, particularly the Nuclear Incident Team on behalf of the Nuclear Emergency Support Team, and the ICER Energy Response Organization on behalf of Emergency Support Function 12. Program offices also provide input to various aspects of the DOB. During the current COVID incident, the Office of Environment, Health, Safety, and Security provides much of the information on the COVID slides, including the current DOE case numbers. There is also a program office that has its own slide in the DOB. The Office of Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response provides the content for the Energy Infrastructure Update slide, and their Eagle Eye system provides the content for the National Electricity Picture slide. Finally, we get the National Significant Weather information, including textual summaries and GIS REST services from the National Weather Service. Now for some of the lessons we've learned over the past 5 years of producing the DOB, which may be helpful to you in planning a similar product for your site. The first question to be answered is, who is the audience? The answer to this question will drive most of your subsequent decisions from what information to include, to what format to use, to what frequency to publish on. Something to be aware of is that the audience can also evolve over time. The early days of the DOB did not have the high-level distribution that it does now. As the information became more appropriate for a higher-level audience, the distribution evolved over time. Consider where you will get your information from, and particularly what impact that will have on your partners. You want to make participation as easy as possible, but the reality is that you may need information from your partners on a daily basis. Find the right balance that works for your organization so that you are receiving the information you need in a timely manner, but are not overburdening your partners with additional work. Since the DOB is a point-in-time snapshot of information that is constantly evolving, it became necessary to include information as of timestamps on some of the slides. This was necessary to keep from endlessly chasing that one more update before publication. Some information will be out of date in the time it takes just to paste it into the document, save as a PDF, and then attach it to an email. That's just the nature of the beast, and the timestamps are a good way to help tame the beast and keep your audience from second-guessing the validity of your information. In emergency management, we deal with activation levels and severity scales that, while second nature to us, are foreign to senior leadership. Including tables that define the activation levels and severity scales referenced in the document can be a huge help. We have found this to be particularly helpful when a site refers to an internal readiness level that does not have a corollary at headquarters. This is also why the Watch Office is constantly asking your sites to provide definitions for internal activation levels cited in your reporting. As we discussed a few slides ago, take advantage of opportunities to streamline using technology. We are in the process of leveraging our WebEOC system for producing the DOB, which will eliminate redundant data entry and streamline the publication process. Even if you do not have an information system capable of producing the product for you, look for opportunities to cut and paste data from other sources or include screenshots from other systems. One important logistics consideration is to always publish the document as a PDF. Not only will this typically save a significant amount of file size, but it will also keep your template shielded from your audience. PowerPoint templates for this type of product often include instructions in the slide notes, which your audience doesn't need to see. Distributing as a PDF also prevents recipients from manipulating your data and your product without your knowledge. Finally, since you are already distributing a document, use it as a platform for other important information sharing efforts as well. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that the distribution time for the DOB has shifted for the COVID incident so that the DOE senior leadership brief can be included as an attachment along with the DOB. We have also used the DOB to support national messaging efforts for National Preparedness Month and hurricane season preparedness, as well as providing air travel forecasts for the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. If you are wondering how to get information from your site included in the DOB, we definitely want to hear from you. Some of the ways sites can contribute information to the DOB include proactively reporting your site's operational status to the Watch Office whenever you have an incident or inclement weather, sharing the dates for upcoming major exercises, sharing the dates for upcoming major events that will impact site operations or your emergency management program, and passing along local media pieces on your sites, especially if it relates to your emergency management program. Send all information via email to the Watch Office at doehqeoc@oem.doe.gov with a note that you would like the information considered for distribution in the DOB. If you are interested in starting a similar product for your site, here are some things to consider. Define your audience. This is extremely important as it will determine many aspects of your product. Most importantly, what information will be included. Also keep in mind to revisit this question regularly as your audience may evolve over time and your product should keep pace. Decide on the format and frequency for your product. It could be a full-blown set of briefing slides or something more simple like a quad chart, one-pager, or even just an email. Just remember to keep the information easily digestible. Tables and graphs are better than text, and try to make the product mobile-friendly for your audience reading on a cell phone. Also consider the frequency of your product. If there is not enough information to warrant daily publication, consider weekly or some other frequency that fits your site's needs. Build partnerships and make your product a team effort. You will most likely have to rely on other offices for some of your content, but this collaborative effort will ultimately result in a stronger product. Although you probably want your emergency management program taking center stage, broaden the aperture a bit to include content that will help build your audience, which will help ensure the exposure for your program that you wanted all along. Set up a schedule for the production of your product and make sure the partners are aware of it. Adjust your schedule as necessary so that information is coming in with plenty of time to actually generate and then disseminate the product. Try to be consistent as possible with your schedule. Once you build an audience accustomed to a certain publication time, they will come to expect it. Finally, consider publishing multiple versions of your product, but only if your audiences and the sensitivity of the information require it. You will want to find a balance between serving your various audiences, but not overburdening yourself with additional work. As an example, I mentioned earlier that the Watch Office publishes an interagency version of the DOB. The interagency version is the same as the internal version, only it omits the senior leadership locator slide. This small change is manageable and appropriate to protect sensitive information regarding leadership locations. Just make sure your product does not take on a life of its own with too many versions to handle. Now I would like to thank everyone for joining me today to talk about the daily operational brief. I would love to hear any thoughts and answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you for your presentation, Kip. I've been monitoring the chat and watching for questions. If you have other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and I will relay those to Kip. Sorry. We do have a question that came in wanting to know how do they get on distribution to receive the daily operational brief.
Well, that is a wonderful question, and with kind of a two-part answer. So the short of it is you can just send a request to the headquarters watch office at doehqeoc@oem.doe.gov, and they'll pass that information along and make sure our distribution lists get updated. However, the more involved answer to that question is if you have a number of folks at your site that you'd like to receive the DOB, the way we prefer to manage that is to actually have you provide us a distribution list, and we'll send the DOB to that distribution list. So if you want, some of your senior leadership or some of the folks in your emergency operations center to be on distribution, just create a distribution list for those folks, or you may have one already, and then just let us know the address to that, and we'll address the DOB every day to that distribution list.
Thank you, Kip. Um, we have another question. If HQ needs information from my site for the daily operational brief, who should they contact?
So usually, if the watch office has a question, they're going to reach out to that 24-hour emergency point of contact, which is different for each site. Could be your 911 call center, could be your plant shift superintendent. It's different for every site, but it's that 24-hour emergency point of contact, and that those folks should be accustomed to the watch office contacting them on a regular basis. Anyway, but those are the folks that if there's ever a question, that's the first point they're going to reach out to, and then you'll ask to be handed off from there to the person that can answer the question best.
That's great information. And if someone didn't catch that address, is it all right if they email you to get that information again?
Sure, go ahead and feel free to send me an email with any questions you have, and we'll get you taken care of.
That's great. Kip's information will be in the speaker tab. So if you didn't catch that address and you want to be on distribution for the daily operational brief, just send him an email. Um, you recommend publishing as a PDF. Why wouldn't you want to paste the content just directly into the distribution email?
So that's definitely an option. And honestly, if we had a smaller document, that's probably what we would do. We use basically PowerPoint as our source document, and we're up to 18 slides right now with everything that's going on across the complex and with COVID. So that's a lot of slides if we were trying to paste those individual slides into an email. Say if we were using a Word document as our format, and we just had a one-page Word document, then we could paste that directly into the email, and that would be a good help to the readers, especially those who are trying to read it on a cell phone. But right now, it's not that practical given the size of our document. Now, one option to consider would be doing sort of an executive summary, where you could highlight some of the key points in the body of an email and then have your attachment as well. So that's another thing to consider.
That's great information, Kip, and thank you so much for sharing this with all of our members of EMI SIG. Um, we want to remind everyone to complete the survey by clicking on the survey icon just below the description in the virtual meeting app, and that'll also give you credit for attending this session. And the app, the scavenger hunt, you want to check that out and see if you see an item in Kip's session where there might be a scavenger hunt item. And I think you'll enjoy that. Our next session, Kip is going to share with us about bridging program office divides during event planning. And you can select that from the schedule on the left, or you're always welcome to join another channel to watch an SBX demonstration, attend a workshop, or participate in a user group. And we thank you all for attending.